Chapter 30A, Section 18, in the Governor's March 15, 2020 order, imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191 or live streamed online at westboroughtv.org. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so we have a couple items on the agenda, but I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we're not ready to discuss tonight. One is the A&R plan on 30 Belknap. We'll take that up at our next meeting. And the other is the project progress and possible lot releases for Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street. The applicant is still working on some issues with the Design Review Board, and so we will take that up at our next meeting. So that leaves us with a continuance of the definitive subdivision plan for the ridings. And I will read, I don't know if I read, Jim, do I need to read this into the record or can we just reference it?
No, please read it into the record because it's a request that requires board action.
Okay, so I have a request from Thompson and Liston Associates on behalf of the applicant dated May 22nd, 2020, addressed to the Westborough Planning Board regarding the definitive subdivision filing for land at Harvest Way, Westborough, Massachusetts. Assessors map 3, parcels 29A and 57. Dear Mr. Silverberg, on behalf of the applicant and owner, Casa Investments Incorporated, I ask that the board please extend the action date on this application to July 7th, 2020. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you. And that's signed James Tatro from Thompson and Liston. I think this is pretty straightforward, but Jim, any comments on this, Jim Robbins?
At our last meeting, you may recall the planning board closed the public hearing on the definitive plan, having received all comments from town departments. Also, we received, since that time, the planning board at the hearing, before they closed the hearing, requested that the Conservation Commission weigh in on whether or not they wanted to own the open space. They did submit a letter to me. The planning board was copied on this, stating that they did want to own and maintain the open space. They would be working with Sudbury Valley trustees because they have contiguous land to this open space. So that is also part of the record now. But I would like the board to please make a motion to grant the request of Casa Builders, Casa Investments, Inc. to extend the time to grant a decision to July 7th, 2020.
So since this is not a public hearing, it's just a vote on the extension. I can take questions on the extension, but not on the conservation department's desire for the land. I think that because the hearing's closed, we can't really discuss that. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if there's any questions about the extension, I guess just speak up. We're a small enough group.
No discussion.
No questions, Mark.
All right. Well, I will make a motion then to extend the definitive subdivision, the deadline for a decision for the definitive subdivision filing to July 7th on
Second that.
the ridings, the land at Harvest Way.
Second that, Mark.
Jim, are you happy with that motion?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please speak up. All right. I'll do a roll call. All those in favor, Jim Ball,
Yes.
Bill Spencer,
Yes.
Hazel,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. All right, so we had some minutes on the agenda. Bill, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Sure. Did everybody receive the copy that Kristen sent out for May 5th, 2020?
Yes.
Yes.
And has everybody had a chance to review them as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Any questions? If not, I will go ahead and motion that we accept meeting minutes as presented for May 5th, 2020.
Second.
Second that. Go ahead.
All right, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call again. Jim,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye. Yes.
Hazel.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll also vote yes. We had some, I think that's it for the agenda, but we did have some new business that we wanted to go through. The first of the.
Mark,
Yeah,
could I interrupt a second?
Go ahead, Hazel.
I noticed, I mean, I know that we're going to pass by Village Commons, but I would like for Jim Robbins to give us a little update on that. So the rest of the board, excuse me, is aware of what's been going on. And I'd like to make some comments after that.
Yeah, Hazel, I think we've done that via email already, and with the applicants not here, I prefer that we just hold that off till the next meeting, unless it's, unless it's urgent. I mean, I know you have a meeting scheduled next week for design review.
I had a question about procedure, and can I
Okay.
raise that?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. Go ahead.
I wondered what the power of the planning board is to put a stop work order on a project in which, when we have a developer who is essentially going ahead and doing exactly what they want to do without any approvals.
Okay, Jim, can you address that?
Sure, thank you. If the board finds that the developer is in violation of the permits that you've granted, in this case, the special permit, which also attaches to it, design reviews, approval, then you can request of the building commissioner to enforce the zoning, and because the special permit is a zoning permit, and anything attached to it is a zoning permit.
So Hazel, do you think we need to put that on the next agenda for, specific discussion?
I would appreciate it.
Okay. Why don't, is it possible that we could see how the design review meeting goes next week and then address whether we want that on the agenda? Or do you want to,
I guess I would like to put it on the agenda. We can always pass over it. But I think it's something that we need to consider and think about in situations where the planning board may think about some enforcement issues, and how we will do this, because I think it reflects badly on the planning board and the town if we have some developers who continue to flaunt the zoning rules and they don't seem to suffer any consequences from it, and compared to developers who go ahead and do exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
okay, so why don't we put that on the agenda when we have Fred here as well as the applicant, and we'll be able to address that with the applicant, and hopefully get a message across it, or, if we can vote whether to issue a stop work or, other course of action.
Okay, I just think it's something that we ought to think about in regards to all developers. I mean, I think we need a procedure whereby, there may come a point in a particular development where we may have to start being stricter about people that are violating the special permits.
Yeah, and I'm good with that, but I think where Fred is part of the enforcement of that, I think it would be good to have him.
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree with you.
So I think we should we should put that on the next agenda.
That's fine.
All right. And as far as this specific project, without the applicant here, I don't think we should take any action without him here.
Well, I think the important, and we also need Fred here. I mean, we would not want to take any action unless we had a comment from the building commissioner on this.
All right. So back to new business, if we're done with that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have the town election coming up on the 20th. I just wanted to announce that we do have a write-in candidate for Bill. Bill Spencer is not running for re-election. And we do have a write-in candidate. His name is Timothy R. Kohler. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Tim. And his address is 18 High Street.
You want to spell his last name for us?
Koehler.
And Mark, you did email that to all of us this week or last week. I recall.
never
Yeah,
saw it.
and again, I've spoken with him a few times. He's involved with Community Land Trust. He's involved with the Climate Change Task Force. He's raised kids in town. Again, I don't feel, I don't feel it's appropriate for me as chair to endorse anybody. So I'm going to just leave it at that. But I think I hope you get a chance to talk with him and hear what he has to say, because I put it this way: Bill has big shoes to fill. So we're going to miss Bill a lot, and that leads me to my next request, I guess, is that Bill is currently on the master plan committee, and part of the subcommittee for
Climate change and sustainability.
climate change and resiliency. Is that it?
Sustainability.
Sustainability. Okay. Too many subcommittees, too many committees in general. So I'm sorry. I would like Bill, if he's amenable, to stay on that until the master plan process is completed. I think where he's invested the time and clearly has a positive contribution, that I'm hoping that he is willing to finish out that process for the master plan. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but I'd like to hear from Bill first to see if he's willing to do that. Bill, you need to unmute yourself.
Thanks. Sorry, fighting my mouse here. I apologize. Yeah, I would be honored to continue serving on the board as long as I can. If I have some issues, I'll come back with you. Not just the planning board, but also the master plan committee as well. There's a lot of important things that need to get done there. So certainly I'll continue working with the group to get that done if everybody else deems it appropriate.
Mark,
I'd
I
hate
would
to
say,
have you quit.
go ahead, Hazel.
I'd hate to have you quit. I think the master plan definitely needs you. There's no question in my mind, and I'm delighted that you're willing to continue to serve.
Thanks, Hazel.
I was going to say, and Tim has a lot of time in sustainability in those areas, so he may be able to add value to your committee, Bill. I spoke with him at length as well. Found him very enthusiastic. I think his credentials were strong in terms of organization, and so my sense was he'd make a good addition. Just so people are aware that I did have a conversation with him as well.
Yeah, Jim, I think before we put him on the master plan, we'll have to see the results of the election, but I do think he would make a good addition to that committee, and he may have interest in other subcommittees too. So let's see what happens in the election. But for now, I'm just happy that Bill Spencer is willing to continue. Jim,
Well, and frankly, has continued longer than any of us expected with this delay in election, correct?
True.
How many months now?
So Jim Robbins, do you need us, since Bill is already appointed, I don't know that we need to take any action,
No.
but okay.
He would need to resign. I mean, he's been appointed to serve through the end of the master plan study until he until that's over, or he resigns, he's a member.
Okay, well then, I think we're all on the same page on that. Jim Robbins, I know there was some other updates that you wanted to give us, and if there's something I'm missing for new business, but I'm going to turn it over to you to update the board on a couple of things.
Sure, thank you. I have time to do that. 30 Belknap Street, as you know, has been on our agenda the last couple meetings. There's no problem with it. The A&R has not been submitted yet. As you know, we put it on the agenda because it needs to be reviewed by the planning board prior to town meeting. Town meeting has been extended, as you know, the date for that. The A&R plan, however, will be at our next meeting. We were talking with the Department of Public Works, the property owner, and the engineer that's drawing the A&R to make sure that the options and the configuration of the parcels are in keeping with the town's wishes. We're pretty much tied up on that right now. I expect to have it in the next couple of days. You'll receive it by the 11th, which is the Thursday before the next meeting. As you know, the town will be phasing in its reopening of town offices. So the planning board office will officially reopen June 8th rather. That's next Monday. The staff, however, will be alternating days. So we will not be fully staffed each day in the office. Kristen and I will be alternating our time. Kristen will be working Monday and Wednesday. I will be working Tuesday and Thursday. Fridays we will alternate, and it will remain that way until further notice. All of the offices will be alternating staff days. So if you, for example, you were going into town clerk or the assessor, you would not see full staff there until we enter a new phase of reopening. And that begins Monday. There is a town staffing study, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, that is available for review online. The study right now is in the stage where the selectmen want town boards to take a look at it. It's not in the implementation phase. Please take a look at that because some of the recommendations affect the planning board and consolidation to create a new economic development department and some staff reorganization. If you want me to send you a copy, I can do that. It is available online and comments are open till a week from tomorrow. So you have 1 week to get comments back to the selectman's office. There's a link there to provide your comments. I have already commented. I will send you by email my comments. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. It's a long document. It's almost 160 pages long. The part on the planning board is somewhere beginning around like page 35, but you should read the first preamble too, because it does point out the duties of the town planner. I think that's important. You see that before you go into the section on the planning board. I'm going to defer the other things that are in front of the board till our next meeting.
Jim, can I ask one question?
Sure.
What happened on that Grove Street property?
Well, you'll have to look at the outcome of tonight's selectmen's agenda. They're going to set the warrant. I know that that property was discussed in executive session at their last meeting. So until they set the warrant this evening, I really don't think I can comment on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody know what the Grove Street property is?
Yes.
Okay, that was a piece of property that we were looking to acquire, the town that is, and it is on the warrant as a separate warrant article.
That was for parking, right, Jim?
Yeah, that was the
Building would come down.
intent. That was one of the initial intents. That's correct.
Okay, so if that's all new business, am I missing anything on the agenda? I don't think so. No. Does anybody have anything else they want to discuss? We have about 10 minutes before the master plan. Okay.
I think I should give you an update on restaurants. So restaurants will be reopening on Monday, June 8th for outdoor seating only. That's phase one of the governor's plan. And just so you know, and actually, I'm glad I remembered this. Just so you know, the outdoor seating in many cases will be in adjacent parking lots serving the restaurants. In the downtown, there are no requirements for parking. So for example, a restaurant on East Main Street or South Street would have to have tables on the sidewalk. The governor's directive that was issued yesterday waives all zoning review requirements for outdoor seating. We have a task force. Our general review committee is going to be discussing how we're going to handle this locally. The Board of Health and the building commissioner and the fire department for access will be the departments that review applications for outdoor seating. We've already received several. There will be no review in front of the planning board, so site plan review has been suspended. This is only on a temporary basis until restaurants are fully reopened for indoor table service. Until that time, don't be surprised if you see picnic tables set up on lawns outside, say at Dunkin' Donuts, or in parking lots, say in the downtown for Arturo's, or out on Route 9 where we have restaurants. Some restaurants, as you know, have dedicated outdoor seating like Red Roof, say, or
Ted's.
Beverage Joe's, Ted's, yes, the House of Pizza. They'll be activating their patios. There is social distancing of 6 feet required between the tables. So don't be surprised if you see that as well. But you won't be reviewing any outdoor seating in front of the planning board. This is an effort to get things moving as quickly as they can. Any questions?
So any questions for Jim on that?
No,
All right.
that's great.
Jim, did you want have you're all set with any other updates then?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Now I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay. And then actually we're adjourning now and or do we leave it open for the
It's a
message?
separate meeting, Kristen, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
separately posted.
Yes.
So I think
Under your email from earlier.
all right. So all those in favor, speak up.
Yes.
Aye.
Yay.
Okay, I vote yes as well. That's 4-0.
So you have a separate link for the meeting, the master plan meeting following in about 8 minutes. So you can log on, probably 7 minutes now. The site may be up already.
Great. So we'll see you back.
Lester.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting. One thing that I haven't done at these meetings in the past and that I'm obligated to do is to read the current open meeting law suspension from Governor Baker. So bear with me as I do this. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing a limitation on the number of people that may gather in place. This meeting of the Westborough Master Plan Advisory Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend the meeting can be found on the town's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting live may do so in the following manner. Watch on youtube.com/Westborough TV or on Westborough TV, Verizon Channel 28 or Charter Channel 192, or watch a recorded version on Westborough TV Government Meetings on Demand. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means, Westborough TV. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So with that out of the way, again, welcome. If you happen to click on the participants list and see those that are with us and those who will once again, as at our last meeting, that we are absent many of our members, and many of those members are department heads and our town manager, all of whom are and continue to be consumed by dealing with the ever-changing world dealt us by the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's in that context that the real announcement of tonight is going to be made. The steering committee has continued to meet every other week and with some additional meetings thrown in. And from the steering committee meetings, we raised the concern that given the demands on the time of our department heads, and given that they are subject matter experts on the committees on which they serve, and given that we would prefer that the process proceed with their full engagement so that the rest of us on the committee may benefit from that engagement and the eventual content will benefit from their subject matter expertise. We raised the question to the town manager, to the superintendent of schools, Amber. I see Amber's joined us tonight, as well as ultimately to the Board of Selectmen for their opinion on the wisdom of delaying the schedule of the master plan some period of time to ensure that, or to provide the opportunity that these department heads can find the time and the normalcy in their schedules to give to the master plan more of their time and time that is unencumbered by preoccupation with what's right in front of them right now, which is considerable. It was the opinions of the town manager, many of the department heads, as well as unanimously the Board of Selectmen, that this was advisable. While I think there's some work on the master plan that could continue to be done, and we don't want to discourage that, we do want to slow down and delay the work of the subcommittees that need to benefit from the input of the department head members on those subcommittees. Ultimately, the master plan continues to be a shared vision for the future of Westborough. And we want to bring to that process our best, our best state of mind, our best thinking. We've been unable to engage yet our business community as they continue to reel from the effects of the pandemic. We need them in a more positive and proactive state of mind, I think, for input. And we face a challenge now with what the next public meeting and participation process will look like. So the agreement has been reached to delay the schedules 60 days, and Donnie will talk a bit more about what that looks like. That doesn't mean that we will suspend entirely the process. I think we can use this period of time to continue to capture the input of our residents. We have this wonderful new tool on the website now, the Submit Your Ideas tool, which allows images and suggestions to be uploaded, and for other members of the community essentially to poll against those ideas by liking those ideas. We have continued to reach out in other ways to the community. I've just this week recorded another episode of Frank and Mary in Westborough on Westborough TV, and that's now posted to the master plan website. So I think we can keep the spirit of the master plan alive and look at it positively as something to reach for. But out of respect for the department heads, we will be delaying the timeline. And so with that said, I'll turn it over to Donnie to give you a bit more insight into what that will look like. And then we will open it up to any questions from all of you and give you the time to air your thoughts on the matter, as well as any questions you might have about what this delay period might look like. So we'll turn it back over to Donnie.
Thank you, Lester. And before I get into the schedule, I just wanted to say that these are tough times. I hope everybody is doing well, everybody's safe and healthy. I'm encouraged by the attendance tonight. Everybody, really is continuing to show their passion for this project. I'm also encouraged by the leadership committee, how, as Lester mentioned, getting together every other week and sometimes meetings in between, just to make sure that this process is thoughtful, that this pause is thoughtful, and that the town ends up with the right plan at the end of the day with the broadest possible outreach and input, particularly from town staff. So with that said, I just wanted to go over a overview of the project schedule. So the original schedule by phases, we saw Westborough Reflects ending in May, and with Westborough Explorers beginning in June, going through August, and confirms moving from September to an end date of March 2021. The revised schedule sees Westborough Reflects extended by that 60 days that Lester talked about, so moving into August 2020. Looking at Explorers, the Explorers period from September to November, and confirms from December to May 2021. Now this is a simple shift of the 60 days. And as you can see, instead of ending in March, we're now anticipating ending in May 2021. So just to give you a better sense of what that looks like, I tried to be as simple as possible. The details of this schedule will be shared as we get further into the planning process. But so we'll take the 60 days, June and July. We'll return in August. We'll try to advance the existing conditions and the issues and opportunities at that point. We have a couple of options in terms of how we proceed with advancing the existing conditions. We can either have a common deadline. Everybody's issues and opportunities templates are due at a certain time. We'll reconvene, discuss those all together. Or we'll have a phased deadline, which is what we're suggesting. Because some groups are further along than others. Some groups wish to proceed with their work during the 60-day pause. We believe that some groups will be ready earlier than others. And to give everybody a better sort of accommodation of schedule, I think the phased deadline, having groups such as sustainability and climate change, move forward earlier in August, with other groups like housing proceeding toward the latter end of that month, I think is the best way of going about it. But again, open for discussion. So moving past, looking into September, hoping to have a public meeting, community survey number 2, or at least begin those processes. Again, that's focused on visioning, goal setting, and recommendation/action brainstorming. September and October, we believe the subcommittees should continue their meetings and their engagement on the topics of the public meeting and the community survey. Again, the visioning, goal setting, and recommendations. And during that time, we can continue to advance the conversation around existing issues and opportunities. All of this feeds into each other, and all of it goes hand in hand. But by November, at the end of the Explorers period, we would like to confirm the vision statement, goals, and list the draft actions. As we move into the confirms period, again from December 2020 to May 2021, we want to discuss and confirm those actions, followed by a public meeting and the last community survey to prioritize those draft actions. And in February, March, April, May, discussing the draft implementation plan, finalizing that, performing some in-reach with town departments and boards, confirming that, and pulling it all together at the end of the day to have that presentation to the larger stakeholder groups and the planning board. So overall, I know this is pretty simplistic, but this sort of outlines the overall shift of the schedule. Again, we are looking at a May 2021 end date. We did manage to shift or cut about a month out of the total schedule. So we would have ended in June, ended in May instead. There is opportunity for efficiencies between the February and May timeframe. But just given everything, we'll try to find those efficiencies as we proceed with the process and take a step, to just sort of reevaluate come the Westborough confirms period. But at this point, we're anticipating a May 2021 end date. So this doesn't mean that the 60-day pause, as Lester mentioned, doesn't mean that this project is stopping. There's still some ongoing public engagement, some community touch points. The objective is to maintain awareness and also to keep the momentum going. Opportunities include the existing ideas board. So I do want to share a couple of those things with you in just a moment. We do have about 30 ideas that have been posted so far. Lester did give a demonstration on Westborough TV that was received positively. But some other opportunities, thinking about revolving those idea boards, being topic focused, for example. What are your specific ideas for natural, cultural, and historic resources, for example? What are your ideas for land use and zoning? Some ongoing polling, asking targeted questions, and we can get some subcommittees ideas on this. What questions do the subcommittees have for the public that they could, the answers, they could benefit from the answers. There's another tool called Stories that we haven't activated, but I do want to introduce that tonight, just as an idea. This is the idea around Stories is to bring the community together, have a shared sense of empathy. This is particularly sort of relevant during this time, given COVID, the economy, and the protests. But for example, people can share their personal stories through framed questions or stories on good news. We all saw the popularity of Some Good News on YouTube and now moving to CBS All Access. But this is an opportunity for people to share their personal stories, have people react to them, get a shared sense of community. And again, this is just an introduction and just an idea. So I'd like to introduce this to you now and have a conversation about it. But I do want to go back to that ideas board just for a moment. Here we are, and give you a sense of what everybody's talking about. So we have over 30 ideas. Many of you have submitted on rail trail, lowering taxes, having Westborough be a walk-friendly community, keeping us green, posting photographs about calisthenics.
And Donnie, this is Jeffrey. Just a suggestion, if you could go a little slow through this because there's a little bit of delay, would be helpful.
Oh, thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah. So this tool has been well received. A lot of good ideas have been generated. Open space and art center, ideas to make Westborough more green, big accessible park for grown-ups too, sidewalks, sidewalks, sidewalks. But that gives you a good sense of the participation that we're already getting through the ideas board and that we anticipate getting throughout this 60-day pause.
And Donnie, can you mention the like functionality on that as well? Because that's an interesting idea that people can rally around different thoughts that have been posted there and coalesce around them as well.
Yes, of course. So as you see, some people have hearted or liked some particular ideas, and we can gauge, sort of the popularity or the need based on those likes. It's an unscientific method, but it allows people to share their feelings on these ideas that are being posted, coalescing around certain concepts.
I think the idea for the committee to be looking at this and tracking it to some degree, it will enable them to get the pulse of what's happening in the community and maybe start to frame some of your questions, your thoughts within each of your chapters or your topic areas to see what the pulse of the community is as well. So that could be a resource during the summer months as well.
Yep, and we've even gotten some comments, Don, posting about open space reserve accounts. So all of this functionality has been well received and utilized, and we hope that it'll be utilized further during the 60-day period. So with that said, and the revised schedule presented, I want to open it up to conversations. So if you want to raise your hand through the Zoom platform.
And what I'll do is I'll moderate raising the hand and call on people as we go through this as well. And I think one other thing that I just wanted to point out, if you go back one slide, Donnie, on the Westborough master plan, and maybe Lester, you can talk about this a little bit. I think we found through some of the outreach to different stakeholders or audiences that utilizing the website as the ability to tell the story about what the process is, what some of the goals and objectives are for Westborough has been quite effective as well. So Lester, let's turn it back over to you and you can join the conversation. Lester, I think you're still on mute.
All right, there we go. One of the things I did want to say about the website is what it is a fantastic tool for continuing engagement. But you will all recall that at the beginning of this process, we did make a concerted commitment to ensuring that we have non-digital outreach available as well, hence the posted polls and the senior center and the library at the high school and other ways to engage the community. Obviously, under the current circumstances, a lot of our interaction has been forced into digital platforms. But as I said to Arthur Bergeron and Shelby Marshall on Frank and Mary, what my hope for that is that we will send out, all of us on the Master Plan Advisory Committee, to our friends, neighbors, contacts in Westborough, a link to this Submit Your Ideas page and invite their input. But additionally, invite them to engage family members or people who are not digital natives and ask them for their input, and then volunteer to put their input up through the Submit Your Ideas board on their behalf. I think there's an opportunity here to find a way to engage, to listen, to collect ideas, jot them in a notebook, and come back either as an advisory board member or just as a member of the public on behalf of grandparents, friends, neighbors, put their ideas into the process. So with that said, though, I think that we've been asked possibly for 3 areas of feedback here in this introduction. And what I would like to do is structure it just a little bit. And I see that we have department heads, Amber, Bach, I think we have Jen here, Doherty, and Kara. And I wonder if we could get a reaction from you to the pause or the 60-day delay. And Amber, if you wouldn't mind, maybe we could start with you, go to Jen, and then to Kara.
Sure, Lester. Thank you. I certainly, just every time I'm looking at the slides, I'm feeling that kind of poignant sense of a little bit of loss to slow down on this, because I think it's such important work and such a commitment to being a deeply well-grounded community that captures the vision of our neighbors and friends and our residents. But at the same time, I think I do want to acknowledge that as somebody who, as superintendent of schools, is really pressed right now and extended into multiple areas in order to provide education under these circumstances. I really appreciate the pause and recognize that I just need it in order to focus on my charge to provide the best possibly that I can to families and to lead our team right now. So I really hate to step back from it. I also would say that I thank your opportunity to do that. And then lastly, I think it's really thoughtful to pick a slice that we can continue to keep momentum on. And I think that's a really neat idea. So I respect and appreciate that you've picked like a thin strand that we can maintain, which is the conversations with people to stay connected and to gather their ideas and continue to talk up the work. It feels like something I can hold on to and continue to contribute and then come back ready to go when we're done. So I do want to thank Lester for your leadership that we've been given a pause. So thank you.
Thanks, Amber. I wonder, Jen, could we hear from you?
I'm not sure who you're thinking of, but I'm not a department head. I'm just on the historical commission, so probably not me.
Apologies, Jen. I got my Jens mixed up. Kara, I wonder if you would comment.
Sure. I very much appreciate the pause. I feel very strongly that I want to be involved in this process. And the last couple of months, I've been able to commit very little time and attention to it. So I welcome the opportunity to jump back in a couple of months. So it feels like the right thing to me.
And then if anybody else would like to comment in general on this decision or to ask questions about the time frame ahead of us, please use the raise your hand feature, which I know on a laptop you can reach by clicking on the participants icon. If you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, and there's a little blue hand to the left at the bottom of the window that pops up, and Jeffrey can moderate, inviting you into the conversation that way.
That's great. And we have a couple that have raised already. So Jim, let me go to you if you want to join the conversation.
Jim Ball or Jim Robbins? I know we were
Jim Robbins. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim Ball. You'll have to wait. Thanks, Jeffrey, and thanks, Lester. This idea of the pause, I think, has been coming for some time. It's difficult now in our current circumstances to really organize the members of our committee to meet in a critical mass necessary to get this done. We're able to meet by virtual meetings, but we can't really bounce ideas off each other on a sort of an informal basis. For example, Amber's or Kara's not going to walk downstairs to see me during the day like they normally would. I'm used to having contact with my fellow staff members and department heads where we can talk about something on the spirit of the moment. That's not happening now for a couple of reasons. Not because we don't use our phones or email, but because we have so many other things that have to take precedent. We just can't get to it. And this has been coming for some time. I'm talking to the group that I have that does plan review. Even doing plan review right now is difficult. I think this is really good because our circumstances may actually affect the outcome of the master plan in terms of the things that we recommend. We're learning things now, and we were ahead of the curve when we thought that we needed to have a section on public health, but I think that's even more important now. We may learn that we need to add something new to the master plan that hasn't even been thought of as a result of the experience we're having with the COVID virus. We may add a new chapter. We may add input on things that we wouldn't have had before that are going to arise because of this experience. So I think the pause will give us an opportunity to jot down our notes and reflect on them. Because when you're working on a task that's on a timeline, you're always thinking about how to get to the next task. You're always trying to move forward. You're pushing forward. And I think it's necessary. It's like going on vacation. When you're away, sometimes you're creative. New ideas come to you, and you come back to your job reinvigorated with new ideas. And I think it's possible that we may see this downtime as good for the plan. That's my thought.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. So let's go to Jim Ball, and then we'll go to Hazel next. So Jim, you want to join the conversation?
Sure. I'm glad for the pause there, Jim, because a bald eagle just jumped out of the tree and grabbed a big bass out of the lake. So it's kind of fun to watch. Life goes on, apparently, no matter what, right?
He's
couple of comments.
Than I.
A lot easier, Jim. He made quick work of it. Couple of thoughts. I think the pause is a great idea, mainly just because none of us are engaging with each other in groups, just thought of being at a restaurant and seeing people and asking them for feedback on this, trying to talk to businesses or getting in front of large groups. There aren't any. So my hope is the pause even long enough to get back in front of some groups. We'll see. Then the other thought I had, I love the storyboard idea. One thing that occurred to me, I know when we ultimately put out on the, when the chief put out the word on the survey on his call, we had a whole bunch more people come in. I haven't seen anything about this in the community advocate. I don't know if in the beginning there was or at all, but I read that pretty religiously every week. I think most people do. I don't know if it would be worth getting the storyboard idea out in just a brief update in that, because so many people see it, and then we may get more people to get on, particularly as you alluded to, Lester, that not everybody sees electronic communication, but I think a lot of people read that or some of the local papers. So to get that storyboard out of you, I think that is certainly a tool most people could use. So that was just some thoughts.
That's great. Excellent. Thanks for that, Jim. That was great. Hazel, would you like to join the conversation?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, the advisory committee leadership group really have thought long and hard about delaying this. And I think it's the right move. And I look at all the town department heads and people that work in the town that are working so hard at this time to just take care of their everyday business. So I think in the long run, this will make a better plan, because I think it'll give people time to think about various changes that might be made and will make us a better town in the long run. So I fully support this idea, and I know that some of the committees can work over the summer, and any input we can get, I think we're all happy to have. And thank you all for your guidance.
That's great. Thank you for that, Hazel. And I do not see any other committee members that have raised their hands. So I guess a final call at this point on the agenda. Okay, so Lester, would you like to rejoin? Lester, would you like?
Submit your... I'm sorry. I'm unmuted, but you don't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. I think the connection might be a little bit tough. There you go.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I think Lester, we're not getting you connected at this point in time, and my observation is sometimes these connections come and go. So I think we'll have to give it a few more seconds here. And with that, maybe Donnie.
On the website.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, Donnie, why don't you, if you want to go ahead and maybe just talk a little bit about some of the next slide here, give Lester a few seconds to get caught up there. Sometimes these delays come and go, and then we'll come back to Lester in a few seconds.
Yeah, sure. So we do have to open up the presentation to public questions and comments. I'm wondering, Kristen, have you received anything?
No, I don't have anything in the planning department email.
Okay.
Okay. And then I think maybe, Donnie, it might be beneficial for the committee if we were to go back to what's happening over the next couple of months and gearing up towards September. And I think just as a reminder, knowing that we're going to be taking this pause, but maybe if you can do a little bit of a recap of what happens in September, so people will know to be thinking about how we're going to kind of get back into gear and get things restarted. Maybe a recap of what September looks like might be helpful for everybody as well.
Right, just so everybody's on the same page, and just for a reminder, so in August, we're going to be advancing the existing conditions and the issues and opportunities. And by that, I mean, if it's so, if it pleases all of you, on a phased deadline, having those templates finished and coming in to Kristen and to VHB. Once those are in September, we'll start planning the public meeting and the community survey. Those efforts will be focused on visioning, goal setting, and action brainstorming. In conjunction with the public meeting and the community survey, the subcommittees should be meeting and should be engaging with their partners or their individuals of passion, expertise on the vision, the goals, and the actions. And then in November, we'll start to come together once again to confirm the vision statement, goals, and list of actions. Now, there is going to be a few meetings in between, a few back and forth with VHB, drafts of vision statements, drafts of goals, as we start getting more and more information in. But by the end of November, we hope to confirm the vision statement and goals and have a preliminary list of draft actions that we can then move into the Westborough confirms phase, where we start developing that implementation phase.
Thank you, Donnie. And I think it's important just to let everyone know, if you don't have the time in the summer to do any of those items that we talked about, just be rest assured that when September comes around, we'll be following up with some very clear direction and guidance to the committee just to get you relaunched and acclimated as well. So with that, let's try Lester one more time to see if Lester, if you can join the conversation, maybe you got relinked there.
I will try again. Can you hear me?
That's great.
That's better.
So Donnie had introduced the notion of adding another survey tool to the site, which is the freeze feature. And if anybody has any opinions about that, or whether we should perhaps try to utilize the submit your ideas first stories, Donnie, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about. And then if anybody would like to give us an opinion on that, we'd be open to that.
Yeah, so I have an example pulled up here, direct from the vendor's website. Really, the idea around this is just knowing the conditions and the events of today. Having people share their stories, I think, is important. Whether it be through the means of this master plan or some other other means, having people sort of rally together and empathize with each other during these types of moments, particularly from a public health perspective, from a social cohesion perspective, I think is important. Now, I'm just offering this up as an opportunity for people to, utilize this platform. We could frame it, such that these stories have an intersection and relevance to the master plan. For example, how have you been impacted by, the town's public services in relation to COVID, or what does diversity in Westborough mean to you with respect to, some of the, protests that are going on throughout the United States? Those are just a couple of examples that I wanted to throw out there. But really, this is just an example about, people telling stories, posting pictures, people reading them and sharing them with their, friends and family. And, having some comments if, this one doesn't agree, or I think this is a good idea. It's sort of just a way to communicate with your neighbors during this time. Now, again, this is up to you guys if you think this is the appropriate venue for that or not. Being a master plan project, I think there's intersections, and I think it's generally important. But you could see the example here. You could post videos if you'd like as well. Really, it's a long form type of feedback. And it's the point is really to, again, storytell.
And I think, Donnie, what we would do very carefully is work through to give some framing to this so that we're kind of staying on topic about the relevance of a master plan. So as Donnie mentioned, those couple of examples, I think we can frame a couple of questions about, tell us your story about your typical journey to work. How might have that changed over the last few months, and how do you see that changing in the future? And by telling some of these stories, you might glean some things that are real things that the committee could react to. So rather than being just broadly open about any story, I think if we had half a dozen or more, suggested topics that people could tell stories around, it might be pretty impactful as well. But again, all of this is optional if the committee wants to move forward with it. So Lester, maybe you want to chime in with maybe some of your thoughts there, and then I think what we can maybe do is get the pulse of the committee this evening and have a plan to follow up over the next few weeks with Lester, Hazel, Kristen, and Jim to move this forward potentially.
I don't see anybody clamoring to raise their hands to comment on this.
Yep.
I've got maybe Jim Robbins has a comment, but so let's hear from Jim, and then I'll give you my thoughts based on where it's going.
Yeah, Jim, you want to join in?
Thank you. Just kind of to frame this question of storytelling. I think people who've been in the community have seen a lot of change. I know in the years that I've been in Westborough, 25 plus, I've seen a tremendous change in development. And there's been phases in development. When I first came here, it was residential development like crazy, lots of new subdivisions. Then there was a change in our downtown. We created an overlay district and Bay State was built and several other mixed use projects were built. Recently, there's been a surge in commercial development, whether it's Route 9 or in our office parks particularly. I think that someone that's lived in town ought to storytell about how they've seen Westborough change over the years. And the reason for that is a master plan is to guide our future based on what we have learned from the past. And I think, you know, someone, and could be Lester, could be anybody from the community, Hazel, Jim. I know both Lester and Jim, you went through the local school system. You guys are born and raised in Westborough. You know how it's changed better than anyone. I think a simple story to kind of kick off the discussion might be good.
Great. Excellent. Thanks for that, Jim. And I do not see any other committee members raising their hand for now, but so actually, Jody, you want to join the conversation? So Jody, we were going to hand it off to you. You're still on mute if you wanted to join the conversation, unless that was an accidental raising of the hand, which that happens sometimes too.
That was an accidental unmuting. So here I am. I'm rather excited about this notion of storytelling. Anyway, it sparked my imagination a little bit because early in the meeting, I was, appreciating the pause, sitting here trying to think about what am I going to do when I re-engage in 60 days or over the next 60 days, thinking about our piece, which is the public health piece, which I think needs some pretty profound thinking, both from the perspective of what the COVID epidemic has taught us, even from the perspective of what, the tragedies in our community right now and the anger and the pain that we're experiencing in our culture, how that might inform even if there are public health connections there. So this notion of storytelling, to me, is a wonderful way to engage. If we're thinking of a way of getting public input, just saying, what do you think about public health is really tough, but asking some specific questions about tell me your story along this theme in public health and how we should plan for, a healthy community in the future. I don't know, I just want to say I find this really imaginative way and possibly even a good structural way to get some more input into these sections.
Great. Thanks for that input.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do not see anyone else raising their hand. So maybe Lester, back to you to give us some final thoughts on this topic.
Well, yeah, up until those two hands went up, I was going to suggest that maybe we just optimize the submit your ideas feature, but those are two compelling reasons to do it. And I do like the way that you've proposed framing the questions on which stories are garnered. So I certainly don't object to activating it on the site. Perhaps we can take it up at our next steering committee meeting and finalize that decision and roll that out along with the submit your ideas to the community advocate, and then ask our committee and others to disseminate that through email and other ways. So I think we have a positive indication on which to act.
That's great. Okay, and I think we've already checked with the public audience. Maybe it's worthy of one more check before we wrap things up for this evening. So maybe back to Kristen to see if there's anyone else that's had the chance to email in some questions for us.
No new emails.
Okay, great. So Donnie, back to you. Do you want to lead us through the last steps here?
Sure. I just wanted to open it up to Lester for some closing remarks. But before I do, I want to thank everybody for their guidance and their patience on this project. Again, I really think that the pause has been thoughtful from the leadership committee and thoughtful on the part of the larger advisory committee. And really, this is just going to lead to a better plan in the end. I really like Jim's comments and Jody's comments about taking away from this experience and the experiences that we're living in now and applying it to the plan itself. I think we would be remiss if we left these aspects of our time out of this particular plan, which has a planning horizon of about 10 to 15 years, if you recall. So thank you very much for participating in this and in this meeting tonight and moving forward. So Lester?
I see on the chat a question from one of our members from Pete Dunbeck, who asked, can the stories be anonymous? Whether we might get more engagement that way. I think that probably it's going to require at least a login. And because I do think that the content, as with the Submit Your Ideas content, should be moderated. But that's a question, Peter, we can take up as well and discuss. So thank you for that. I don't think I could have said it better than Donnie just did, and that is, and that Jody alluded to, that if we don't learn from the circumstances we're in now and apply that to the master plan, we would certainly be remiss. And I think that if we frame it positively, it presents us with an extraordinary opportunity to reflect on the kindness and the connections and the manner in which our community is caring for each other. And I think we have a profound opportunity here to reflect on what really matters in our lives as we have, been sheltered with our families and other close ones. So I think I remain very hopeful. 60 days from now, we'll of course have to reevaluate. We're not quite certain where we'll be, as Jim Ball suggested, in 60 days. But the intention is that we ensure that we have the positive place from which to develop the best master plan possible. For those of you who do continue to work in your subcommittees, I know that there are other interested stakeholders and community members that are reaching out and saying that they're interested in particular chapters. We will share those with you as they come in. There's an opportunity to engage with them, with or without perhaps the department head member of your subcommittee. So if there is a desire to and an impetus to and a reason to engage, please do. And please reach out to us with any questions or for any guidance we can hopefully provide. And that's all I have. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight. And we look forward to whatever the next steps are, and we'll be in touch.